Always love that guitar lick. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Moen After Dark. Tonight we're running a three-man booth with Immaculate and WildUte here on a very special Tuesday evening where the college football world is going crazy. I don't think there's any place you can turn in college football right now that is not going absolutely batshit insane, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great. Yeah, this is awesome stuff here with UNC, FSU, Virginia. Like we're talking like so many different areas of the ACC are imploding. It's just wild times.
It's a lot coming at the end of the month, personal and also with all of this. So it's just hanging on.
Well, let's get down to some business. If you want to become a member tonight, we suggest you do that. You get access to early videos, loyalty badges. I will put Nightbot in the chat on that task right now. Also, we answer member questions. They get priority here on Moen After Dark. All super chats get answered. And then that'll be the last I talk about it till the top of the hour. I promise. You can also smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on. Those things are free and help us tremendously, people. If you're watching this video on demand the next day, leave us a comment. That helps too. We go back through, we read the comments, we listen to your feedback. Sometimes we'll even answer it. So definitely leave us comments on the videos as well. Let's go ahead and say hello to some of the people that came in already. Timothy Green, good to see you, Mountaineer. Summit Hawk, let's go Moen. Thank you, Summit Hawk.
Got the Hawk in with us.
Conundrums here on Hawkeye. NCAA comes after Vols NIL program. Are Buckeyes next? No. We did it fair and square. If anybody asks. FSU fights back. Hello, Moen. And I'm like, yes, that was my one insistence was Seminoles Strike Back is the name of the show tonight. Good evening, all. The Big 12 is going to be fun in 2024. Yeah, those schedules came out. I was a little disappointed that they didn't have the Holy War at the end of the year.
It's a good business decision, though.
Yeah, I'm with Immaculate here. What's your thoughts on that, Immaculate?
That's tough time, in that rivalry week at the very end of the season. I mean, everyone wants their game there, but there's only so many that can be on TV. So does the Big 12 really want to take on the Big 10 and the SEC in that week and end up maybe with an FS1 only shown game? You take your best games and you put them out, spread out through the year, and you're actually going to get those on higher grade television on those other games. I get it, fans. We wanted this week, we want to have it up against those, but actually, I don't think you do. I think this was a very smart business decision by him, and it's going to help the conference get better visibility and possibly help boost it up and when he goes back to renegotiate next time.
Yeah, I'm with you, Immaculate. I like the idea of not having it on the final week of the season because it is the feature matchup or one of the feature matchups probably of that week. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I've kind of got some beef with, though, this game's right after a bye week, and I would love the Holy War then a bye week. So, like going in after a bye week, going into the Holy War takes so much out of you as a program. That's basically like playing two games in one. So the Utes and the Cougars play after a bye week, and then the Utes are rolling in and going to Boulder to play Colorado the next week. So that's a tough one right there.
On the flip side, it gives you an extra week to prepare for that game, though. Like those two teams are going to come into that game prepared. Like it's going to be a good game. You kind of got to get used to recuperating week after a big game. It's going to happen, but I think having that extra time to prepare for that rivalry game, I think that's a pretty smooth move. I think, and the rest of the country has to kind of come to know that rivalry. I mean, you guys know it. Big 12 people are learning about it, but by putting it on earlier in the season and getting it on a big showcase, people are going to start to learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got our first super chat. If only there was news to talk about. If only Rock and Rant. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Yeah, it's going to be a packed show. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to let you unload your comments on us. Let us know what you think about these things. Let's keep saying hi to some people. See, Sergeant Pickles is in chat. Kenneth Evans is here. The Buckshot Kid is here. John Dry, good to see you. The Big Lubbock, are we going to talk about how great of a university Texas Tech is? We can. We'll try and shoehorn that in there at some point in between all the Florida State stuff. Randy Taylor, it's hitting the fan. Let's start there. Okay, let's start there. Florida State. Florida State fired back this week, yesterday actually, at the ACC. There's a great article on War Chant. If anybody wants to, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this in the chat so everybody can go take a look at it. If you haven't read it yet, it's a definite read. But basically, the ACC told them to stop snitching, and they told the ACC, not only are we not going to stop snitching, we're legally obligated not to stop snitching. You didn't sign in. We didn't sign an NDA. There's no non-disclosure in here. There's no trade secrets. And even if there was, go piss up a rope because we're in a sunshine state and we have sunshine laws to follow here. So you just kind of have to deal with it. It was a blister. If you've read the whole thing, I read the whole thing. It is a blistering response. Blistering. Did you guys have a chance to read the actual?
Most, and I've been pretty busy and looking at some reactions and what people are saying and presenting. There's been multiple things about it, we'll say, in other forums and places. A lot of talk. This is basically front and center for everyone. They pretty much said, no, we're not going to stop after talking about the ESPN option. In fact, we're going to double down, and now we're just basically going to destroy the credibility of your previous commissioner and the relationship between the ACC and Raycom and how that's even pissed off ESPN and why ESPN. I mean, it's just, I could go on and on and on. So I'm kind of curious to see what it has to say about it too and what everyone has to say on it. But it was huge. It's huge.
I think it's pretty scathing because of the implications here. Basically, the implication saying that Raycom, that deal with Raycom for the tier 2 rights was significantly under market value. And then there was that stole essentially media dollars that should have gone to the ACC schools, including Florida State. And it was a sweetheart deal with the commissioner's son at Raycom, who ended up getting promoted because of the deal itself. I mean, there's all type of just sketchiness with that that's come out. It's a bomb, guys. I mean, that's a big bomb right there and stuff. And that you bet your bottom dollar that's going to be a legal talking point on what the heck's going on there and stuff. And if, the conference has been a good steward, really, of the media rights. And it doesn't seem like so after you see, Swafford's kid being involved with Raycom and all that stuff going on. So wild stuff. What do you think about it, Moen?
Yeah, like I said, I read I think I read all of it, but I'm pretty sure I read most of it. And like it's like literally it's for a realignment junkie. It's literally you're sitting there going, "Oh, snap. Did you see this? Oh man, I can't believe that happened." You're like, "Oh my God, no, they didn't. No, they didn't." It was quite impressive. I have to say, Florida State really took it and said, "You're going to send us a 9-page. Here's 26 pages giving you the finger." I was actually shocked the last page just wasn't a giant middle finger to Florida State.
I mean, it kind of was when you say that 80% of Raycom's entire business is based around that deal in the ACC. Like, without it, they're dead. So for him to say, he wasn't doing this for his son, it's like it would be a bold-faced lie. I mean, pretty clear. Without that deal, they're dead. His son's everything he's put in there is dead. Using the conference in that way. I mean, at Iowa, we had the whole Ferentz clan thing, and that's distasteful. And at Michigan, but that's in coaching. This is much bigger. I mean, this is a shit ton of business and payouts to all the schools that they're not getting because of this. He's basically kind of a parasite on the conference through this. That's why I said in my first post that I did about it, they better settle soon, otherwise they might get nothing.
Right?
Nothing. And I know people might be like, I'm just trying to, talk startling stuff here. No, that kind of shit, nothing. Don't go to court with that ACC. And then that's a precedent for everybody else. I mean, that's death. That actually worries me for the ACC. And I've been talking about their future and what they could do, but they're going to need a little bit of cash to sit on to do that.
Yeah, it's let's get some comments from the chat here. Let's see what you guys got. Does that mean K-State has home field advantage?
Have to look at that today. Who's he talking about? If you're seeing John, which one are you talking about?
I'm assuming Utah.
Are you talking about the Wild? Is he talking about WildUte here?
No,
K-State?
they don't even play. K-State has
Yeah,
Kansas at home, and they're at Iowa State on rivalry week at the end of the year. So, not quite sure which one he's talking about.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know on that, John. Big 12, Kenneth Evans agreeing with you. Big 12 needs the most visibility for its best games. I hear that argument, but I'm a traditionalist. The rivalry game should be your final game of the season.
I don't want to go up against Michigan and Ohio State in the Iron Bowl. Like, no thanks. I'll pass. Play a couple weeks before and be the significant game
Friday
next
night.
day.
Play on a Friday night.
I don't want to
guys.
play on a Friday night. I want to play on a Saturday. I think it's brilliant.
Even Friday night's getting taken though. They're going to put like Oregon and Washington on there.
Yeah.
They're Iowa and
the Big Ten
Nebraska's on there.
side.
Like, and on the SEC side, they'll probably do the same thing. So I just think this is good business. And maybe sometime down the road, when you've built this new kind of Big 12 thing up and people are maybe paying more attention to it, we'll see. But for now, I just think it's really good business.
Sergeant Pickles brings up last year in the pack, Oregon-Washington was a very highly rated rival, and that was week 6. Better to spread them out. Pickles, while you're here, I wanted to ask you if you saw the tweet from Washington or if you guys had heard about this. Washington apparently put together a highlight video of their Pac-12 championship season, and the Pac-2 filed a copyright claim against them for it.
Shut
and
up.
They did.
Removed the video.
You can even see it on Twitter. The video has been removed due to copyright deals.
Yeah.
It's a little petty.
It's a lot of petty. It's a lot of petty.
There's a little petty involved with that.
But I will give you a drink for that Pac-2. That is.
I'll drink for that too. Hey, Georgia Tech.
That rambling wreck from Georgia Tech.
You know what, though, guys? Like, speaking of the Pac-2, the biggest winners in this ACC mess are the Pac-2. Like, the more instability, the messier this gets, the more people in Pullman, fans, in Corvallis should be dancing around, because that means that there's going to be a fracture that's happening sooner. And then Oregon State and Wazoo can partner up with Cal and Stanford and get into that. The remnants of that conference is exactly what they need and want. So, I mean, while some programs are scared, it's a huge win for the Pac-2. Like, all the stuff going on, and every single little fracture is a win. Every single one of them.
Quite possibly. I mean, if that's the direction it goes, is the more that's happening and pushing that, the better for them, because timing-wise, we'll see. We'll see how that goes for them. It's kind of tough to see still at this point.
Conundrums. Knowles give ACC an overhead smash. Yep, off the second turnbuckle, the old overhead smash. Rod Nix, good to see you, Rod. It was a B-52 bombing run. My Knowles are serious. I believe them. Trust me, I don't want to piss off their lawyers. Knowles are snitches, LOL. It's true. They're snitching. They have every right to. FSU went gangster on Swofford. Yeah. This has been, I mean, the Swofford son nepotism thing has just kind of been a whisper. It's a conspiracy theory, a tinfoil hat thing. since this all went down several years ago. But now it seems to be gaining a lot of traction, at least among our types. The major media is not covering it. Shockingly, you will not find very much on ESPN about this, which I think says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has to do with them directly. So I kind of get it. Like business wise, this is, you probably don't want to have your people all going in with their opinions on your business deal with these folks. So yeah, probably not the best place to go for information about this one. ESPN is going to be pretty tight-lipped.
Rock and Rant, FSU just beat the ACC like Georgia beat them. Oh, that was cold-blooded.
Ouch.
Doesn't this for the FCC to get involved? I think you mean the Federal Trade Commission would get involved. I don't know what the Federal Communications could really do there. I think you mean the FTC, but if you want to clarify that conundrum, by all means clarify that, and I'll try and get back to you on that.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong per se from the governmental legal standpoint, but in terms of like a business practice, the dude should be, number one, fired. The business deals should not, people should not be held to them because of some of the lies, the straight up lies that were told about the network and money coming in and things like. I don't know how they can stand on it. You say, oh, you signed it. Yeah, but it's not an unheard of thing to go into business court and have a judge declare a contract void because it's just not enforceable. And one of the major reasons for doing that is fraudulent terms and misrepresentation. So I they need to settle quick. I could be wrong, but that was pretty damning.
Timothy Green, please hit that like button, folks. Thank you very much. Thanks for putting that out there, Timothy Green. You're right. Hit that like button. Smash that like button. I like this. Rock and Rant. Raycom deal is like the consigliere and the Godfather. One client. Only have one client. Mr.
What
Rhodes.
happens if FSU settles? Like Immaculate, you just mentioned that. I agree with you, but like, what's the fallout of that? If FSU settles outside of court, then Clemson's coming next, UNC's coming next, Miami's coming next. I mean, this thing.
Whoever has a spot would come next. Like,
yeah.
If they know where they're going to go, if someone's kind of said, come on out. Yeah. I mean, at that point, then the Ace, I don't know what the step is to where you go from having FSU settlement to someone else saying, this is precedent for us. We want the same price. Then the ACC has to either agree to it or fight against it. And so then they got to fight in court. And so how long does that take? I don't know. It's still messy afterwards. But
it's way messy. Yeah.
You move on to the next step, which is then those other schools saying, okay, we want that price. That's our exit fee.
I think that this throws a wrench in that, though. I mean, you're talking about unfair business dealings with, Swafford's son. This is a completely new ball game. And so any type of thinking that, hey, FSU is going to get out for a cheaper price because it's not going to duke the conference is out the window, given this. Like, everyone's going to get the same deal. You're not paying more if you're the second to leave versus FSU. There's no chance of that. Like, especially given this information and everything, things are just blowing up so dang bad. I just see it almost as an impossibility that you'd pay more. Like, you'd probably just go to the settlement table and take exactly what FSU's, given out, or even less. Because I can make the argument that, like, when the FSU leaves, all of a sudden you're so diluted based on FSU leaving and stuff that you can't even make the same financial argument at all. So you actually should pay less than FSU. I mean, that's kind of how I've always kind of seen that playing out, especially with this brand new news, with these unfair business dealings. It is a freaking hot mess. Really. And the ACC is in major trouble of not just retaining teams, but like surviving in general. Like, this calls into the survival of that conference completely.
Well, they can always backfill. I'd say survival as an A4.
I'm talking
survival.
about I'm
But
talking
there's
about
just
full
not
on
enough-
Pac-12 jump off the ship.
There's
Everyone's
not enough
off but a
room.
couple teams, and you're trying to rebound, but you're going to fold the conference. That's what I'm
There's not
talking
enough
about.
room for them all, though. Really, I don't think between the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12 are they going to take 18 teams. There's not enough room. So I think instead the remnants would just pull up from the AAC and other places. That's why I think like the IV would come in and take the remnants, the scraps, and build it up into something if they want, because they can't just bring the IV to the FBS. That doesn't work. You have to get invited to a conference. So they'd have to merge into an entity that's already there. But there's not enough room for the ACC. That's a problem. You're right. Like normal rules applying about what we saw with the Pac. Yeah, you would think that the whole thing could just fall like a house of cards, but there's just not enough room that I would see. So I don't know. Well, we'll see how this goes. It's way messier than the Pac situation.
Like this talk about stability. So we're kind of going and we're jumping far down the line, but like the stability of a fractured ACC that's lost its six. Say there's 6 of the top brands that jump off the ACC train, and you've got the remnants of the ACC in a fractured conference with a questionable media rights deal that's coming up in 2027 with the ESPN, right? Like, who at that point is more stable? Like, I'm serious about this, guys. Like, is it the ACC or the American Conference? Like, I mean, if you guys want to talk about like the remnants of the ACC and what they can warrant in media value if they lose their top 6 brands, it is not that much more significant than the American. It's certainly less than 20, probably less than 15 million a year in annual media rights revenues. And so,
yeah, but it's whichever way it goes. That's kind of like a moot point. But I'm just saying, there's not really anywhere for them to go up, so they would have to pull schools up. There's not room for Boston College, Wake Forest, Syracuse, maybe Duke, Stanford, California, SMU. You look at the private universities, and that's why I say, I mean, that to me seems like the most likely scenario of schools that have something in common that could build off of that. And it's because it's this freaking messy. So if they want to have a conference that can basically have its own rules for private universities in this age coming forward where we're at, there's going to be this husk of a conference that they can basically do whatever they want with it. And if enough power comes into it, like the Ivies and whatever, they might even still stay at the A4 table and help write the rules. So, but everything else other than that, I agree with you. It is vastly decreased value, whether they merge with the AAC or they bring up schools or they leave. I don't know, but it's just it's not good. So the only theory that I see going forward for them after all of this is with the Ivy to make that thing. That's that. I don't see any other way of value. I guess that's the end of it.
All right, we got a super chat from John D. ACC keeps the 23-24 television revenue. FSU is out for 80 million.
Saying 50 to 100.
He's calling his shot. He's saying 80. We will come back to this episode if you're right, John, and you can give us the lottery numbers as well.
I mean, I would have to agree with John here. Seriously, like that seems pretty dang reasonable right there. Keep the TV revenue, get out for 80 million. Like that's kind of what we're talking about there. I think that's really close to what's actually going to happen. So that's how I see it playing out.
If you think 10 schools to get the publics out at 80 million a pop, that's 800 million sitting there for the others to, over 20 years or whatever it really is. But that helps you stay afloat through that time while you're rebuilding this in whatever way. So I like the idea of actually it being lower than what most people think. So you get all of them to go at once, and then you know what you're doing going forward versus continuing to do this for 2, 4, 5, 6, 8 years, whatever it takes. Just rip the Band-Aid off and move on.
Yeah, I'm being told that all 800 million goes to John Swafford's son and Raycom. So
it's only 80% of that. So you gotta do your math.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Just that up.
Thank you for the super chat, John.
Appreciate it, JD.
Buckshot Kid, I'm watching a Big 12 channel with 2 big fans and a UU fan that wants to be in the Big
Took it
10.
over.
Well,
Buckshot
over,
Kid.
you take over.
This is what happens after dark, you see.
Yeah. Just wait a while, okay? We're working on things. Big plans, space
We
plans.
do. Yeah, we've got big plans for this channel. So, but yeah, you fan. Hey, you know what? I'm happy to be in the Big 12. I'm incredibly happy to be in the Big 12, and I'm happy that we're not in the ACC, the Utes, because there was a shot that could have happened. The Utes jump to the ACC, and we'd be in the same pickle. So I am happy for the stability of the Big 12, but the Big 10 does provide a lot of value for teams, and that's understandable. So I do understand your comment. Thank you for it.
Sergeant Pickles, yep. Washington State and OSU being insanely petty. Can't take the hardware back, so F them. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It is kind of funny when you think about it that you gave them that, and that's theirs, so they
It's
can
petty.
file a copyright claim. They should, yeah, they probably should have said, hey, take that down or pay us or charged them for it. The Clemson, UConn, Pitt, Louisville will solidify football and basketball. Clemson, UConn, Pitt, Louisville. You're going to have a hard time, I'm telling you right now, getting Pitt out of the ACC. You're going to have to drag them kicking and screaming into the Big 12.
I think the Big 12 should wait till after the Big 10 and SEC do their thing. Whoever they grab is going to severely weaken the value of the ACC. At that point in time, it's just whether it comes out officially or it leaks out, it's that ESPN will not be re-upping the deal in 2027. You know, that they have to decide that by 2025. So it's not like that decision is that far away. And once that comes out, it's kind of like the Pac situation. You know, you had Utah and other schools are like, no way in hell. Things start to happen. Okay, we'll come. I kind of see it the same way. So for people to think that, you know, there's no way they would come, I get it now. And that's fine. And people can think that up until the day that all this starts to go down. But I would expect when things start to happen that a school like Pitt might be like, well, okay, tell us what you think you are, Mark. We might be interested. You know, lukewarm, check out the water with your toes type of a situation.
Pitt's a much more of a fit for the Big 12 now with the Arizona and Utah coming in, schools in Colorado too, because of the research focus too. Pitt's a heavy research institution, and so is University of Utah and the Arizona schools in Colorado as well. So, I mean, really, there's never been a better time that Pitt fits in the Big 12 now with the new ads. Guys, but I think that at the end of the day, there's 10 schools in the ACC. There's 10 schools in the ACC that will have potential landing spots. That's it. I don't think any more than 10 have a chance to get into the Big 10, the SEC, or the Big 12. It's North Carolina, Virginia, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Notre Dame, of course. Throw Notre Dame in there. Virginia Tech, NC State, Louisville, and Pitt. And maybe Georgia Tech can make its way into. But I'm telling you guys, like from what I've seen,
look what you just did.
You did. Georgia Tech.
Look what you just caused. I don't even have mine with me right now, so he's gonna have to drink for me.
See, I don't think this is fair. You's drinking a beer and I'm drinking whiskey. I went right for hard liquor.
You pick your poison.
Yeah,
you're crazy, Moen.
Next time, I'm gonna get some MD 2020.
But what do you guys think about that? There's 10 schools that I listed off there. Like those are the real schools that have a really good chance of moving. The other ones are really kind of stuck in the ACC. Stanford and Cal are 100% stuck. SMU is 100% stuck. Wake Forest is 100% stuck. I think Syracuse is 100% stuck.
Duke,
you're looking like
I think Duke
is stuck, right? Like, and then Georgia Tech's kind of on the cusp there with like a Louisville, Pitt, and NC State.
Yep. I mean, I could see Georgia Tech going in multiple directions if, say, FSU and Miami leave. And Georgia Tech's kind of sit there going, hey, Big Ten, do you want us in the future? We don't know if we can wait. We might need to go to the Big 12. I don't see SEC calling. So, yeah, they're part of it. They're part of that discussion. I would maybe slot them in instead of UConn there. And I think that's a grab that improves the value of the Big 12. Once you take that and the four corners and you look at the quality of the Big 12 at that point in time, I'd say this isn't a $31.7 million payout conference. Not anymore. It was before. Well, it's not now. So,
Right. But you think ESPN and Fox are going to renegotiate right away on that?
I don't know. It comes down to like, if your mark's helping them out by doing things and they're like, yeah, we'll work with you if you do this and help. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. But I think that's their shot. You know, he's got to figure that out. That's his job.
Conundrum: new ACC equals the leftover conference. I call it the All Coast Conference. I think you backfill with Oregon State, Washington State, Tulane, USF, a couple more schools, you'll be fine. You won't be great, but I mean, he goes with the IVCC. I go with the All Coast Conference.
The
you got a name for it, you? You got your own name for it, you? You got your own name for the new ACC?
The cluster conference. I don't see this being an A4 anymore. I think it's an A3, and I think that there's a significant step behind, and the leftover conference is going to get left behind too, when with the breakaway of the other A3. I just don't see them being on par. I don't think that they would be on par once you add in like your 2 lanes and you backfill and everything, and you've lost all your biggest brands. I mean, it's too much of a loss. So I don't know. I'm not even certain that the ACC is going to survive it. I'm serious about that. Maybe some Frankenstein conference is built and it's a new name, and you add Wazoo and you form something else, but it's not called the ACC. But yeah, I don't see much hope for the ACC at all.
Okay. Jess says Florida State would be playing a Big Ten football schedule during the 2024 football season. And then Rock and Rant says 2025 at the earliest. I tend to agree with Rock and Rant. It's going to be 2025.
This is the 2024 season, so that's pretty impossible. But 2025 is possible.
So Conundrum clarified he had the FCC regarding Raycom and ESPN. I think that would fall more on the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. I don't think there's any violation of FCC rules with what Raycom and ESPN and Swofford did. You could make that there's an unfair trade situation with Raycom and ESPN and the Swofford family. The Big Lubbock, we can take Georgia Tech over Pitt because if Pitt is another Utah, do we need that? Well, I mean, Pitt would boost your academics. Certainly, it'd boost your academics and your research. But so would Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Georgia Tech's a dang good school.
Would Brett Yormark really pass on Duke basketball? Clemson, Louisville, North Carolina State, and Duke instead of Pitt. I don't think that he would pass on it. I don't think Duke would come along.
Yeah. I think they would stay.
You don't think Duke would come along, huh?
I don't think Duke would come along. I think they would rather stay in the ACC. Even if it's a vastly depreciated ACC, they would rather stay in that than go to the Big 12, I think. For academic reasons, they are the same reason that Stanford and Cal didn't want to take Big 12 teams on. They're academic snobs.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it is.
Yep. And they have an Ivy mentality. They're just not an Ivy League school, but they have an Ivy mentality, and I think that's going to show up later. What do we got here with Ryan?
We got a super chat here from Ryan Willie.
Winner.
Wants to know what you think of the Iowa OC pick. I put winner.
Well, Ryan, it's not Chris, so you can celebrate that. It is not exactly the guy of the two that I thought they would pick, or that I thought was the better of the two. This guy, he's an RPO type of guy. He's a pass specialist kind of guy. So if Ferentz is going to let him do his thing, it could be interesting. I don't know. I thought the other guy had a better resume and a better offense, a better quarterback coach type of work. But we'll see. This is it. This was going to be. And if Ferentz gives him some free way to do his thing, this could be a very different Iowa offense this season.
Thank you again for the super chat, Ryan. I appreciate that. We all appreciate that.
It's very generous of a Wisconsin fan actually asking about your
I know.
Iowa OC right there. Look at the Big Ten love going on right now.
We had someone saying that, are we going to take a lot of shots at Wisconsin? But I got to tell you, Ryan's making it pretty tough on us right now.
Yeah. We will not besmirch the Badgers now.
Sorry, Tony.
Think about how poorly run the Pac and ACC have been. You're right, and it comes down to leadership.
You're going to set off Ood right now.
It comes down to leadership.
Man, Mr.
Guys.
Monkey. Sometimes Mr. Monkey says stuff that just it's right on. It's right on, but it triggers for sure. He's right on. Like the Pac's leadership, and now the ACC's leadership with this Raycon stuff. Like this, what messes, guys? What messes? Like, how can you screw this stuff up? How did the Pac lose USC? I can't believe that still. Like, how in the world? And now the ACC is going to lose FSU and stuff and all this. Just the name is complete mud. The ACC name right now is just, the brand is just dying right now. Like, everything about the ACC. Like, I feel bad for that conference and in a program like Wake Forest. Really do. But the Pac still makes no sense. It's just horrible leadership all the way around for 15 years of horrible leadership with Larry Scott, being on yachts and everything, negotiating stupid deals. It makes no sense on how it even fell apart, but alas.
Well, you know how they lost USC.
Oh, I like money.
USC likes money. That's why they lost them.
There's a lot of just market forces.
Yeah. All right, so the Pac-12 media deal here was supposed to be in excess of $50 million with USC and UCLA on board. That was the expectations, and the big was not going to be as significant without USC on board. So actually, that bar wasn't as significant as we think of it now. So really, USC could have made their way. They sucked for 10 years. What do you expect? Utah comes in and creams them every freaking year. They suck it up and leave the conference.
Tell us how you really feel about it, though.
Seriously, why else would USC leave the conference? Utah owns those guys. It trashes them every freaking year, and then they leave the dang conference because their brand is shrinking down or whatever. Why don't you just win? They've got top 5 recruiting classes all the freaking time, and then the Pac. How in the world does the Pac blow up, guys? It makes no sense.
Market forces.
Market forces.
Yeah.
Viewership numbers, West Coast people not really caring about football as much as the East Coast, and and also bad choices. It was just kind of a combination of all the above. The Pac, if they would have played ball a little bit better earlier on, could have been that other conference instead of the Big 12. The Big 12 was kind of slated to be carved up. It's just they didn't play well with others, to be honest.
Too much caviar, wine, and cheese, I think, on yachts.
OPD Don, the Cajun Bajillionaire, is here. Good to see you, OP. So what we're saying is Pitt will go to the Big 12 kicking, screaming, and yelling all the way to the Big 12 front door. Yes. They eventually will get to the Big 12.
Pretty much. If the Utah guy says so, I believe him because
they'll
there's
hate
some similarities.
They'll hate it. They'll hate it. They'll hate
it's
it.
Coming.
But they'll do it.
It's coming to the Big 12.
Whatever happened to the Magnolia Conference? It went the same way of the Airplane Conference.
No, that one went into hibernation, that idea. That it's coming back out of the deep winter right now.
Caden's dad, I endorse Moen's All Coast Conference. ACC adds the 3 military schools, Rice, Tulane, USF, and UConn. Yeah, UConn, I think, is going to go to the Big 12, but it just, you're going to fill up with whoever's left and whoever's the best of the best. I don't see 10 teams leaving the ACC. I just don't think there's that many landing spots. I think the SEC,
it's 4 to the
most,
SEC, 2 to the Big 10, and 4 to the Big 12. It's
Moen, can we walk through an exercise here, okay? Will you indulge me here? We're going to go down the realignment train here. Okay, I'm going to list off each one of the 10 teams that I mentioned about 10 minutes ago. And you tell me if you think they have a landing spot, okay? You don't even have to tell me where. Just tell me if they've got a landing spot in the A3, okay?
All right.
North Carolina,
Yes.
Virginia,
Yes.
Miami,
Yes.
Florida State,
Yes.
Clemson.
I don't think so.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame does, but I don't consider them an ACC school.
Virginia Tech.
No, I think Virginia Tech doesn't.
NC State.
I don't think NC State does either.
Louisville.
Louisville does.
Pitt.
It does.
Okay, so you don't think Clemson, NC State, and I guess NC State, Virginia Tech, and Clemson are the ones that you don't
Yes.
think are going anywhere.
I think
Okay.
I think they will stick with the ACC, and I'll give you reasons why. I think Brett Yarmark wants to get into the Northwest or the Northeast corridor more than anything. He's going to value in adding Louisville, Pitt, UConn, and Syracuse. I think Clemson is going to wait and see if they can get into the SEC at another date. I think that's their ultimate desire is to get into the SEC. They can stay in the ACC and dominate that for a few years and try and make playoff runs and increase the value of that brand doing it. As far as Virginia Tech and North Carolina State, after what the Board of Governors said recently about North Carolina, I think they're just trying to get some, I want to call it Carolina money for North Carolina State.
Yeah.
At
We've
the end of
seen
the
that.
day, when push comes to shove, I think Virginia will abandon Virginia Tech as well to get into the SEC. And I see the SEC just adding 2 right now. I'd originally thought 4, but after those comments earlier this week, it really came off more like we did this just so we could take care of North Carolina State, take care of, that take care of, as in we need to come up with enough money to where these guys aren't left behind. But I think Yormark values the Northeast corridor more than he does anything in the Southeast.
Do you think that Clemson would have a desire to get into the Big 12?
I don't know that they would. I mean, if they're the top dog in the ACC at that point, you're basically guaranteeing yourself a slot in the playoff every year. And then, then you can wait 3 or 4 years. You can make a deep run in the playoffs, win a couple more national championships with Dabo, and then you can have people, you can get into the SEC at that point. At that point, the SEC would probably be chomping at the bit to get you in there at that point. I think you can increase your brand value by just sticking it out for another few years in a bad situation. And if it doesn't work out at that point, you're going to tell me the Big 12 is going to say no to them. Big 12 is going to absolutely, they'll say yes to them at any day. So
right.
I think they're in the same situation that Oregon State and Washington State found themselves in. They're in the worst situation that they can be in right now. But by not saying yes to the Mountain West right away, they may have a shot at joining the ACC.
Yeah.
If they don't say yes to the Big 12 right now, they may have a shot at joining the SEC as far as Clemson goes.
I have a hard time seeing Clemson ever get in the SEC. That's my view, and the reason for that is because, okay, what do they bring to the SEC the SEC doesn't already have? They have the state of South Carolina. They have Atlanta market, which is an hour away from Clemson. They don't need any more big football brands. There's nothing research-wise that Clemson brings to the table that the SEC needs that would enhance the value of the conference. That just, to me, it just doesn't seem like it would be – it doesn't make sense to me. And plus, you're just taking South Carolina off by adding another, brand, school, and state. So I think that the only opportunity, in my view, is Clemson to the Big Ten, and I think that will happen. I do think that's going to happen. I think Clemson gets into the Big Ten with Miami and Florida State. Clemson is a much, much bigger brand than you guys think. Like, really.
I agree with
Clemson-
you to one point, though. But you said you've already got enough big brands. You can never have too many big brands when it comes to consolidation. You can have a McDonald's and a Wendy's and a Burger King. You're still going to want a Subway. You're still going to want, you want these brands. It's all a consolidation game and who to make the most money. If Clemson can make deep runs in the playoffs the next couple years, maybe win another national championship, could skyrocket their value. Tell us what you guys think in the chat. I mean, I may be off. I may be way off. The whiskey may be talking here, but that's just what I think.
One last thought too, like for the big, so again, like the Big Ten has more to gain by adding Clemson than the SEC. Again, for the reasons I've talked about for the SEC, that's kind of how I see it. But it also provides a geographical gap between Miami and Florida State, right there with Clemson. Because if you want to ever build like a travel pod or anything, it makes sense geographically for travel reasons. I have Clemson right there in South Carolina. Like I think that makes a ton of sense. The brand is above average for the Big. Like we've already talked about that with the Big to Clemson video that we put out. Really, the only thing, and Clemson also like top 80 school nationally. The only difference is Clemson's just not a mega research program at this point. That's the only drawback for Clemson. But I mean, they get good TV ratings. They're a brand. I think that they're a really good ad for the Big Ten, and just I see it happening. And they would be the biggest brand by far in the Big 12 if they happen to jump over the Big 12. They really would.
Yeah, and again, if anybody is a member, please go watch that video because I think you do bring up a lot of good positives for Clemson, but I think a lot of the positives you bring up in there also play well in the SEC. But it's a game where we'll just all SEC what happens and go from there. By the way, do you know what an Amish guy's favorite college football team is?
No.
Yoder Dame.
Oh my gosh.
Immaculate.
I'm curious. What do you think about Clemson? Like, where does Clemson land? Say that the ACC fractures like we think it's going to, and say that they decide not to stay in the ACC or that's untenable. What's the play for Clemson?
I think that there's very little chance to the SEC. I think they want North Carolina and Virginia. I still think, I'm going to think it until the day happens when it doesn't happen or it happens, that they will inevitably cave on the other two schools in order to make it happen, in order to keep Big Ten from getting North Carolina and Virginia. I think if Big Ten was to get FSU and Miami or GT right away, they're going to look to come back to grab North Carolina, Virginia in the future if they don't get picked up and go straight down the coast. So I do think the SEC is still going with those four. That leaves Clemson, maybe, possibly some chance as a partner of FSU to the Big Ten. Like I said, I don't see it, but that doesn't mean I'm right. That doesn't mean it's not a possibility. But I think that if all that happens and they're not going to either one of those two, I think they're leading the way to the Big 12. And part of it is because I do think that there's a plan in place with the ACC. And at that point in time, Clemson is doing them a favor, leading a cadre of schools over to the Big 12 and opening the way for them to turn the ACC into an all-private league. I know it's an out there theory, but I think that is one of the leverages of power that they have, is at that point in time to get out of the way. And so I think it's a small chance to the Big Ten, no chance to the SEC. And if it goes that way, then they're going to lead a group of schools over to the Big 12.
I like Caden's dad's comment here. Stop paying the lawyers, settle for the exit fee, about $120 million, high enough price to keep most for leaving for the Big 12. Disperse fees over 10 years, give yourselves time to rebuild and compete with the Big 12. What do you guys think about that plan?
It's reasonable. It's very reasonable.
I've been kind of a 50 to 100 million guy just because I think the price has to be low enough to get all 10 to be able to go at the same time. And if you get 10 leaving at the same time like that, that's a big stack of cash. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. But who knows? We have no idea where it's going to be. I tend to think like right around that 100 million mark is safe bet.
Rock and Rant, Wake Forest going to have a wake if the ACC dies. You know what the best part about wakes are, don't you?
Wake needs money out of this thing at the end. They don't need the ACC causing FSU to get out for free. That's what Wake needs.
That's bad. That's bad, Rock and Rant. That's so good, but that's real bad.
Ryan's calling it that the ACC will completely implode by year's end. You might be right, Ryan.
Yeah.
We're all just taking shots in the dark here. In 8 years, the ACC won't be able to compete with the Big 12, especially after schools leave. That might be, but in those 8 years, you got to do what you got to do. Raycom, the original ACC network. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Big 12 Mafia crew in the transfer portal. Nate says hello, by the way. He had a family thing come up, so he couldn't make it in tonight, so I'm subbing. So I took control. The whiskey's flown, and we're going to answer some of your questions. It's a special Moen After Dark.
Right.
Do any of the channel plans involve belittling the Badgers? No, Tony, they don't. We told you. Ryan Willie gave us a $5 super chat. That enshrines the Badgers in immortality here at College Football Mafia. So, sorry. Yes, think about it. We touched on that.
Yeah, we did that.
Mm.
Yeah, we did that one. Let's see here. Your mark so far hasn't effed up yet. Great leadership.
Hey, that's part of it.
He's played the hand dealt to him, and he's played it very, very well.
Yeah, you got to trust him until it goes bad. And so far, I think even with his schedule, he's showing he's got a mind for this.
It's pretty remarkable when you think of the last 3 years, though, where the Big 12 was. Remember, guys, the Big 12, like schools were really, when Texas and OU declared that they were leaving, how the Big 12 schools really went to the Pac and Kliavkoff and really just wanting to make a push to get in. And the Pac-12 foolishly decided to pass on every single Big 12 school. That was less than 3 years ago. All of a sudden, the Pac-12 fractures. The Big 12 moved from the 5th strongest conference to the 4th. The ACC is fracturing. Now they're moving up to the 3rd. So, way to go. The Big 12 has 9 lives and a great leader at the helm. And it's an amazing story, a redemption story for the Big 12, honestly. But it's pretty amazing when you think back at the survival of the conference.
If Clemson wins the G5 level dismantled ACC, that's not an auto bid league. Unfortunately, it will be an auto bid league. It's still going to be an autonomous 4 conference.
If they keep that autonomous status, they will be. If they lose it, then they may not. We'll see how it plays out. Mr. Muck, you could be right, but I think those schools at the top there, Notre Dame, Stanford, and Duke, they're not just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They see the situation. They're being quiet, which means they're doing something.
I don't disagree with you. At that point, the ACC recruiting would be heavily damaged. It's already heavily damaged. Outside of Clemson and Florida State, Miami's paying players, but Ohio State doesn't pay anybody, by the way.
Yeah, right. With your $13 million salary cap over there.
That's a rumor that Lane Kiffin put out.
That's a rumor. It's much higher than that. Come on.
Right? It's probably 25.
Clemson isn't on a map, unlike Iowa
Tony.
City.
Tough Tony coming in with the jab.
Yeah, let's take a little shot. That's fine. Those Minnesota guys up north, Iowa City is a charming little city.
Maybe the ACC will be the Magnolia Conference if the Ivy League goes to the FBS within the next year.
If they want to get up there, because the Ivy has multiple lawsuits on them right now. They're involved in a lot of shit. And if they end up having to make a tough choice that they don't want to make but have to make, the only way for them to move up to the FBS is if they are invited into a conference. They can't just move. They're the Ivy. Maybe they could grease the wheels enough to get the Ivy turned into an FBS conference, but the rules state that they would have to be brought up into another conference. So, yeah, they'd have to merge into one. And you look at all the other ones, I don't see anyone up there that's anywhere close to the ACC, especially considering Duke and Stanford are already in the same kind of research consortium with the Ivy League as it is. Notre Dame's kind of tied up with them. So to me, it's right there. That's what they're going to do. We'll see, though.
Right. Could Harvard and Yale ever join the Big Ten?
They're part of what they have called the Ivy Plus Libraries Confederacy. And that is something similar to the BTAA, the Big Ten Academic Alliance. University of Chicago, which is, I guess, still an associate member of the BTA, maybe, sort of, maybe. I'm not sure. They're on some lists that they're an associate member, but they're not on the member list. They left that and joined the IPLC. So I don't think so. I think that they got their own thing going on, and they would want that going on in their own conference.
Ryan with another super chat to let us know that the Badgers will keep the Axe for years.
He is.
And
he
I
is
think
talking
with
tough.
Luke Fickell as the coach, you got to pick Fick. More Utah and Pitt talk. Utah's at least good in sports. Pitt is horrible.
Yeah, Pitt does have a big mouth.
They won
they
a
had
national
historical
title
success.
in 1980, guys. It was 1980 they won a title. They'll tell you about it. If you ever run into a Pitt alumni, they'll tell you about it. When Dorsey was their running back, they won a national championship. And they haven't shut up about it since. Rod Nix, under Florida law, contract cancellation is a possible remedy, so Florida State could get out for much less considering the apparent multiple violations of ACC bylaws, they thought.
I think that Florida State should sue the ACC and get damages themselves. Maybe the ACC will end up paying Florida State, not the other way around.
Maybe if they go back and look at all this money that they supposedly lost on the ACOM deal and everything else, they should figure out what that total is, put some interest on it, and say, hey, where's my money?
The ultimate 180.
The problem is then they would kind of owe everybody, and who pays that bill if everyone's getting paid?
ESPN.
So, I think
not John Swofford's kid, that's for sure.
No,
there's no money there.
D5 Terps, Notre Dame should just get ahead of the next round and pick what teams they want to take to the Big Ten. I think they've lost that privilege. I think there was a time that would have been true, and I think that time's passed. I don't think the Big Ten is going to screw around with it anymore and say, oh, yeah, we're going to let Stanford in. No. This is who you get. You've got USC and UCLA in California. Those will be the California teams you can play every year. If you want to keep Stanford as you're out of conference, keep them, but they're not welcome in the Big Ten. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. I think they're still playing towards them, though, especially with all this talk of Miami. That's Notre Dame bait. But I don't think that they're able to call their play anymore. I think once they chose that 2029 deal with NBC, there's still a door open, but there's not like a big, huge welcome mat. I mean, there's other moves now that need to be made. Florida State's in play. Look, Florida State was never considered by the Big Ten. It was never thought of as like, this is something we do, or they would be interested. It's an entirely different. Look, Florida State could be that big of a brand in the future in the proper conference, especially if it's the Big Ten and they are their Southeast school. I think that there is a huge amount of potential for them. And if they join, look, there's a little less of a necessity for Notre Dame if that happens.
Super chat from Sergeant Pickles, our main man on the West Coast. Hey, Ryan, the real UW doesn't lose to WSU.
Fighting words. Ooh. Spoken like an incoming member of the Big Ten. Well done, sir.
I will say bad officiating. Bad officiating. If you had decent officials in that game, Wisconsin would have won it. Thank you for the super chat, Pickles. Moen has to take a double. Both Notre Dame and Georgia Tech were said in the same sentence.
And Opie says so. You kind of got to do what Opie says.
If Opie says so, I guess I probably ought to take another shot.
That's an unwritten rule. It's not written down. It's just kind of there.
Notre Dame. I don't think you guys, going back to Notre Dame topic, I'm not really sure that they don't bring as they're valuable property, but it's not like they're a 4 times multiplier property just to warrant bringing whatever school they want to bring into the conference. So while I think that they would always have a landing spot in the Big Ten because they would bring more revenue to the Big Ten than they're already making, everyone would get paid a little bit more. I don't even know if you brought along, say, like an NC State with Notre Dame, if that's going to even bridge the gap equally. Like, I just don't think that multiplier is as significant as a lot of people in the Big Ten seem to think. I think that a lot of people in the Big Ten have this idea of Notre Dame as like this just beauty pageant prom. Oh, it's so like this beautiful property and everything. And they're great, but they're like USC. Like, they're not that special. They're not that special.
I agree with
Notre
you.
Dame is
but
not that special.
It's the white whale. We'll
It's the
take her
white
down
whale.
if we have to. We'll go down with it.
They're
will go
ranked
down
as the
with it.
second largest fan base in all of college football. So, I mean, there may not be as big as like what you're saying, but they're still the big whale out there. So,
Ohio State's a bigger brand than Notre Dame. They wouldn't even
Ohio
be the biggest
State.
brand in the Big Ten.
but that's what I said. They're the second.
I don't know.
Like if Ohio State was out there to grab, they would move all earth to get Ohio State. It's kind of the same for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's made it pretty clear they're not coming right now, at least until 29. So there's a lot of work to do until that point.
Who do you guys think is a bigger brand, Michigan or Notre Dame?
After winning a title this year, it's probably I can't say it, but it's probably that team that you mentioned other than Notre Dame.
Texas is a bigger brand than Notre Dame. Bama is a bigger brand than Notre Dame. They're a top 5, top 10 brand, but let's not act like they're the number one brand.
I don't know.
The Dallas Cowboys here.
I don't know where the numbers come from. I don't know how they come to them, but it was listed that Ohio State was number 1, Notre Dame was number 2. I think Texas was number 3, and then like Alabama was 4. I mean, I don't know. It was where they came from. I've seen this multiple times, and generally it's Ohio State 1 and Notre Dame 2. But they're up there. They're in the top 5. I mean, it's a huge ad.
All right, guys, we got to take care of a little business here. It's the top of the hour. We've got 119 people watching. If you all would do us a favor and click like on the stream, that helps us tremendously. It costs you nothing. If you'd like to support what we do here at the College Football Mafia, you can leave a super chat. You can become a member. You can gift a membership. You can find all those fun options at the bottom right of the chat window with the $. And I won't mention it again till the top of the hour. Thank you. All right, let's get to some more questions here. The Big Lubbock asks, is Pitt really valuable? And I don't know, you haven't got this far in your series yet, WildUte University yet, but have you touched a little bit on Pitt at all in some of your research?
I've done some analysis on Pitt. This is the assessment of Pitt. Does Pitt warrant $32 million a year in Big 12? To be accretive, do they add value to the Big 12 contract so everyone's making more? I don't think so. I really don't. But what Pitt, on the surface, that's the truth. And like in the ACC, that's probably the truth too. But where you get value in Pitt is in 2 ways: the synergy with the backyard brawl rivalry. That's valuable to bring into the Big 12. So the fact that we have West Virginia in conference in the Big 12, adding Pitt into that adds a lot of value across the board for the whole Big 12 brand. So that's an amplifier for us in the Big 12, but no one else, no other conference. Then also Pitt brings a decent market. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then lastly, the academics in Pitt are really good. I mean, Pitt would be one of the best academic institutions in the Big 12. So it would scratch a lot of the itches for a lot of the research-based institutions like your Utahs, your ASUs, your Colorados, KUs, which would they be a huge fan of too. So at the end of the day, I think Pitt would be right on par with most of the Big 12 value because of the synergy with West Virginia. But if there was no West Virginia rivalry, I would say no.
Local rivalries. Okay, now you go. I know where you're going with this one.
Winner.
Summit Hawk with another 5 gifted memberships to the channel. Summit Hawk, you're killing it out there. Killing it.
There we go. I've got that
MVP
Jayhawk squad.
status.
I'll give you some claps, some squawks. If you're one of the 5 people who was gifted a membership by Summit Hawk, please tell Summit Hawk thank you in the chat. And now that you have a membership, once we're done with this stream tonight, run over there to the page, watch the latest video from WildUte, the video on Clemson's fit in the Big Ten. It's about 30 minutes long. It's well worth the watch. And we have a lot more original programming and exclusive stuff coming your way. So thank you again, Summit Hawk, dude. You're awesome. I'll give you another squawk. Let's see here. Rock and Rant. ESPN has to pick up the option by 2025, but nothing says they can't. They can't say they are declining it tomorrow. That's true.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the option to decide their option earlier. I think they were just given until 2025 to make their decision instead of having to do it in 2021. So I think Rock and Rant is right. They could come in and be like, nah, we're not doing it at any moment in time.
Very good. The Big Lubbock wants to remind everybody to eat shit, Pitt.
Well, there's like, okay, we're talking about like animosity towards a school, which is great stuff, guys. That's engagement. Like the Big Lubbock, right? Exactly. Any West Virginia fan, they hate the freaking guts out of Pitt. That's exactly what we need to drive value because we can talk about it. We can chat about it, talk smack about it. We'll watch the games, gets everyone interested in. We need more of that. That's why Pitt is valuable to the Big 12. But hey, if there was no West Virginia, again, Pitt wouldn't be valuable at all. It wouldn't be. They would not be even considered.
That's the number one. But you could also build up something between Pitt and Cincy. You can build up something between Pitt and Louisville. Like there's even more potential beyond the West Virginia one. That's just the obvious one up front, which I think does make it worth it right there on its own. But that little foursome of schools right there, I think there's a lot of value in that because those people are definitely going to care about all those games. So you're going to have a good amount of games for those schools that you know their folks are going to care about.
I think it'd be really good for Pitt too.
Sure.
I mean, like athletically, I think Pitt would actually get a lift from where they've been. They're going to come kicking and screaming again based on the academic side of the coin here, but I think their athletics will lift.
We touched on this earlier, Edward, but I'll let you go over it again if you want to.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of new people coming in, so I thought we might want to touch on that again.
Yeah, so so Edward, you said, do you know why Utah's not playing BYU the last game of the year? Utah versus UCF last game? Really? Well, hey, you know what? I love going down to Orlando too in late November and everything. So I've got no problem with that because it's cold in Salt Lake City. Here's the thing, though. So rivalry weekend is already occupied with a bunch of good rivalries that are going to have priority over the Holy War. You've got the Iron Bowl. You've got the game, Michigan and Ohio State. So if Utah and BYU got lost on that day, the Big 12 would be not featuring them as much as they want to. So playing a few weeks before rivalry weekend actually is going to be the premier feature game of the week to highlight, like the Big 12 conference more. So I think it's a win because you're going to be the feature matchup that week rather than the third or fourth during rivalry week.
Yep. Yormark is playing the cards that he is dealt, and it's instead of playing the game that the Big Ten and SEC want to play, he's kind of making his own rules, and I commend him for that.
Very good. All right. Moen, your drunken posture is making you blurry on camera. No, the autofocus on the camera is making me blurry.
I had to start that one. I thought that was funny.
Yes. A funny story, when I first got this camera, I didn't realize it had AI tracking, and it scared the shit out of me. Every time I'd move, I'd see the camera move, and it's, yeah. So, yes, it's the autofocus feature. I know. It sucks. It sucks because of the green screen.
He has a feature that helps him so that way he doesn't get demonetized by YouTube. Yes. So whenever he's drinking, it just blurs him real quick.
There you go. It's an automatic sensor. Florida State versus Penn State. Book it. Penn State has no rivals.
I love it.
Yeah, that's just a beautiful, just looking at that Florida State versus Penn State, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
It just such a good little fit right there. I think exactly that. There's your rivalry.
I think that they were waiting for Notre Dame, and they were going to maybe try to make Notre Dame and Penn State one, along with the other ones that Notre Dame wants. But this one makes more sense. This one, they actually have history. These were the first two independents in all of realignment. It was Penn State and Florida State. Penn State to the Big Ten, Florida State to the ACC. They started it all. Might as well come together.
John Dry got him one of the memberships and says thanks to Summit Hawk. Karsten, holy smokes, thank you for the membership. And Summit Hawk says the Clemson video is great. The Clemson video is great, and thank you for gifting those memberships, Summit Hawk, again.
Absolutely.
To allow people to get a chance to view that. And Tony Lawson wants to know, when does a cheapskate like me get to watch the Clemson video? The FSU video was fantastic. We've got 2 weeks exclusivity on that, so I think it's another. What was that? That was last
Put it on
Friday.
a Friday.
Yeah, a week from this Friday, the Clemson one will go live. In somewhere in that interim, we're going to do one on North Carolina is the one that you have up next, right?
Oh, North Carolina's up next, then Miami. Yep.
Yeah, bro. While we're here, let me just do a little preview here for people. I can figure this out.
Yeah, so while Moen's pulling this up, I'll give everyone a little background here. This is going to be on the UNC analysis that we're recording here soon. But as you've seen with the Florida State, if you've seen the Clemson video, looking at 7 different measurements to measure if a school is a good fit for the Big Ten. And in this case, we're looking at UNC, and if they're a fit for the Big Ten conference, we're not talking about the SEC right now, just the Big Ten. So one of the things that we're looking at is viewership. And this is viewership over the 3-year period from 2021 to 2023. And stack ranking USC's viewership, the average viewership, compared to the Big Ten programs, existing Big Ten programs. Where you see the line in the middle, that's the median right there where Iowa is, the bar in the middle. And North Carolina falls at the lower end of the spectrum right here. So North Carolina is measuring at position 17 of 19 schools you see on this graph right here, okay? So not good. Not good at all when you just see it on the surface. This is football-only viewership. So when you're thinking of North Carolina football and looking at its brand, it's not pulling a bunch of eyeballs, and that's not ideal for what the Big Ten's looking at. But I put a asterisk right above that X above UNC because there's a really significant factor that we all need to think about with UNC, and it's UNC basketball. We haven't talked at all in these videos about basketball. Basketball drives about 20% of the revenues that football does, so it's not going to be a major driver in Big Ten realignment. But it's worth considering UNC's ratings in basketball because they are substantial and they're large guys, and they're unique. UNC is about 1 of 4, maybe 5 basketball blue bloods that actually drive big-time ratings per game. If you look at their weekly ratings for some of their ACC games, even over the last couple weeks to a month, I mean, UNC is consistently pulling in over 1 million B-ball viewers on ESPN or ABC or wherever they're playing. Now that's actually more than their football team's pulling in. Their football team averaged actually less than 1 million views per game over this 3-year period. But the basketball team, seriously, per game is pulling in over 1 million views. So there's a huge multiplier here with UNC basketball that's not being considered in our general model that we need to apply to UNC here because this is an exception. So really how I was thinking about this earlier was like, okay, if you're going to double what the viewership is for football, which is approximately a little less than 1 million per football game view. If you're just going to double that to give considerations for the basketball viewership, the unique basketball viewership, really UNC would measure up right between USC and Wisconsin on this bar graph that you're looking at right here. So above average, above the median. And so UNC's brand, when you consider the combo of football and basketball, actually is above average, but the football only is significantly below average. This is all going to go into the analysis that we're doing for that video and everything to see if UNC would be a good fit for the Big.
All right.
Good stuff.
Thanks for doing that. I appreciate that.
For sure.
We will have that video up here within the next week or so. We'll get it up at some point then. Let's get some more comments here. And great comments, guys, by all means. This is a interactive, viewer-driven show. So if any questions you have, any comments you want to make, by all means, put them in the chat. We'll get to member ones get highlighted priority, and then we'll get to whatever we can whenever we can. Ryan Kibbe answers, it's predictable for Utah to paste BYU. Got to spice it up with UCF.
Ryan, my man. Hey, we're not trying to dodge BYU on rivalry week or anything else. It's just the time when we get max viewership on that game and everything. So Utah's not skipping out on BYU or there's nothing with that game or anything. It's just trying to get max viewership. But hey, welcome in the house. Good to see you.
Yeah, they're getting a bye before that game too. So that BYU Utah game is going to be. They're both going to be primed up and ready to go for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, both of them get buys before the game, so it's going to be intense.
Are the quarterback's grandchildren going to be there to watch them play in that game?
Really, Moen?
Jeez.
Really?
I had to. If you got a 7-year quarterback, I mean.
Okay, no more talking about GT tonight for Moen.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, GT.
If Big Ten expands and can add UNC, what is Duke's future? Does Big Ten want the UNC versus Duke basketball rivalry? If not Big Ten, Duke to Big 12 to add to top basketball conference. I think we talked about this a little earlier. I think Duke stays in whatever the ACC is.
Yeah, just wanted to touch real quick on this one. Basketball is just it's what the Big 12 is doing to try to bring them a little bit closer to the other two in payouts. But for the Big Ten right now, they're actually kind of going away from it. Like, it's not that they don't want to do good. It's not really part of their measurement right now. For North Carolina, it is, but it's not like a main reason. And protecting a basketball rivalry is really not going to be that high on the realignment grade, so to speak.
Anything you want to add to that, you?
I don't think Duke's a good fit for the Big 12. I don't think that any basketball ads right at this given point makes sense. Like zero. If it's basketball focused, I don't think it's adding value to the conference. That possibly changes, if there is indeed a breakaway from the NCAA basketball tournament, and if the A3 or A4 start their own tournament, then that conversation changes, because all of a sudden basketball rights are going to be valued at significantly higher. I think over double what they are right now. And then maybe a school like a Duke or a Syracuse or Connecticut would make sense right now. But until that day happens, it's going to be football ads and football programs that add rivalries, synergies, and viewership and eyeballs.
Patrick, Clemson can actually claim national championships on the gridiron, unlike Missouri or Kansas. Wow.
There was a little bit of a debate going on in chat between some folks are saying Kansas is better than Clemson for a pick. So,
dude, I cannot believe the Clemson hate, guys. Like, not hate, but like I can't
it's
believe
not
that
hate.
Everyone.
It's
not hate, but like Clemson. We're talking about freaking Clemson Tigers, guys. Like, these guys have won multiple championships over the last 10 years. Like, this is a huge brand. Like, the Big Ten's going to want these guys. I can't believe like that people just think that like just throw them off to the side. Like, they're going to get in.
I mean, Big Ten's a little different. I get that, and I said, like, there's a chance that they come in there with FSU, no doubt. But that's basically two Oregons coming in rather than an Oregon and a Washington, just to put it in a frame for people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do.
Mm-hmm. So, would they bring in two Oregons? Well, people can have their own opinion on that. I tend to say no, but I could be wrong.
What about a combo of Miami, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia? That's the Big Ten.
Kind of random, but maybe.
So Virginia, if UNC is so sold on the SEC, Virginia's been dead quiet. They're locked right now at the backpack of Virginia Tech based on the local politics. We know that's going to blow up. So eventually, what if Virginia decided to go to the Big Ten? Then you bring along Clemson, because then there's your Washington-esque ad and your Oregon ad.
I mean, it fits that mold. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But it fits that mold. I mean, that's a lot. I think that they're really just looking to go to 20. So I'm kind of stuck at a 2. But you're matching that mold. So I can't sit here and be like, nope, that's not a good idea. I mean, it fits the Big Ten mold of what they seem to do with their picking.
Yeah, I think the Big's going to stop at 20, and if they stop at 20, they're taking Florida State, Miami, and they have reasons for it that, on the outside looking in, don't make a lot of sense, but apparently from the inside looking out, make all the sense in the world. Tony, Monavision, the camera's not moving, the room is spinning. No, the camera was moving, it was following me.
Hey, Mona, you've got a horse in the background.
Yeah. He's a little frozen in time. I mean, I think he's got, I don't know what that horse freezing thing is. I'm in a buggy. You didn't notice that?
Yeah. I didn't put it together.
It's buggy. I got my suspenders on.
There we go.
He's in hiding right now because
it's just a full Amish look. It's all
Mm-hmm.
it's connecting now.
If they find out that he's streaming, he's in big trouble.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I've got a kid with a battery down here that he's just cranking to keep us on the air, guys.
You're getting the real look at Moen this time, guys. All those others, those are fake. This is it right here.
Those are all fake. I'm really Amish.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to our community. I'm just going to throw a shout out to the community. We got 126 live out there. Yeah. Awesome. The chat's going, bumping. So thanks, guys. You're rocking it tonight.
We'll give them a party clap. Somehow Clemson would be a home run for the Big 12. I don't disagree there. I think they would be. I think be a home run for the Big 12 beyond. I just don't know that they're going to go there. Ryan Kibbe, Notre Dame's biggest rival is themselves. Yeah. Certainly their administration.
Or Georgia Tech.
You're just saying it to drink now. Could you imagine rivalry week in the Big Ten if the Notre Dame ever joined the OSU versus Michigan on Fox and Washington, Oregon on CBS, the Notre Dame USC on NBC, with Florida State, Florida on the Big Ten network?
Change Florida to Penn State, but yes, that would basically be a full sweep and possible.
I don't know. I think if they could put Florida on the Big Ten network, they might.
You're right. They would steal it. You're right.
They would steal it and put it on the Big Ten network.
But that should be Florida, Florida State, just to signify that it's a Florida State home game.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, it would be a Florida State home game on the Big Ten network with an SEC team. Just to stick it to them. And we would report the viewership numbers unlike other schools.
And you'd still pull like 5 million viewers in that game.
Look at that lineup, though. That is a murderer's row lineup of football games. I mean, like, I don't know that I would get off the couch. Like, I might need to get a catheter put in or something, because that is just incredible.
And I'm thinking that Washington,
Michigan. Yeah.
That Washington-Oregon game might be the Friday night rivalry game.
Right, the Black Friday game.
The late night over on the West Coast leading into the rivalry weekend. So that opens up that spot for another one, too, for CBS.
Well,
because Iowa, Nebraska's the early one, then Washington,
well, you know
Oregon.
What? If you add Miami, put Penn State, Miami in there.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you maybe the Big 12 sneaks one in on Fox, but no, that's Oregon. That's Ohio State, Michigan for sure. Yeah, there's no one else that has a deal that could take away CBS's spot or NBC. So that's a clean sweep.
This goes back to our previous question and response about Utah and BYU, why that game's not being played in the rivalry.
100%. It's your mark creating his own rules and not playing by theirs. I commend that.
Florida State, Sergeant Pickles. Florida State has good history against Penn State, Maryland, and Nebraska. That's 100% true. I think Nebraska is an obvious rivalry right there for Florida State with the national championship history between the two. Make Utah and BYU play on Halloween weekend.
Oh my gosh, Clay. That's brilliant. I love that so much. Yes. I want that.
He's like,
and
yes.
Make them all play in costumes, and the quarterbacks can be mummies with their 7th year of eligibility. FSU has played PSU 3 times, Maryland 23 times, and Nebraska 8 times. Yes, they have a history with Nebraska that actually I think they've decided national championships have been decided between those two teams, at least one.
I mean, Florida State could have played Penn State 0 times, and I'd still think it'd be a great rivalry to build in the future. Kind of like with Iowa and Nebraska. Man, when they came, there was no rivalry between Iowa and Nebraska, but they made it and they pushed it, and eventually now Iowa and Nebraska hate each other. So it works.
Tony Lawson, who's going to be the second big Black Friday game? Nebraska versus Iowa is one of them. I think we talked about that. Washington versus Oregon seems to be the most logical
I think so.
Matchup. Tony Lawson, I like Clemson over Miami, but Flugs is usually right. Yes, if Flug Empire says something,
I've taken my bruises.
Them.
I do not go against that when he comes out with very certain stuff like that. I tried challenging him a couple times just for the fun of it and took bruises. So yeah.
Carson with the $1.99 super chat.
Oh yeah.
We hear rumors from Big and SEC. Why not the Big 12? Because I think the Big 12 is doing the smart thing and being quiet and biding their time and
playing
waiting.
their role.
They're playing the role. They don't have to go out there and poach anybody. They'll come to them.
There's no poacher for the Big 12 right now. They're waiting until the Big 10 and the SEC kind of crack the egg, so to speak.
Yeah, Big 12 eats third in this game.
Yeah. They're up in the tree stand waiting for the deer. They're not going to go out there trying to stalk them. They'll let Big 10 and SEC stalk them and drive them right to their tree stand, you know? Got a couple whispers tonight. Miami has been in talks with the Big 10 for almost a year now. Possibility. Private school, you'll never know.
Yep, that makes it a lot easier.
Moen, did you just say now that you think the Big 10 is stopping at 20? Do you mean temporarily? Yes, I think on this phase, it's phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1, they stop at 20. Phase 2, they go to 24. I think the next media deal is when they start hitting 24. And that's when they'll be bringing Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Kansas, and Georgia Tech on. What do you guys think about that?
That's absolutely. I think that they're going to 20 and then it'll sit there. Personally, for me, it's when the A4 gets their full governance and they can start to create a whole bunch of new rules and figure out what they're going to do as far as student athletes, pay, status, is it going to be with conferences? They got a lot to figure out. But once they've kind of got their future set up and lined up and what they're doing, then that's when I think we could see one last phase of realignment to close things up. And then the G5, we haven't even begun to see that happen yet. That's going to be bonkers.
I think the Big Ten is going to face some unexpected pressure, like the pressures that we've talked about but forgotten, that are real pressures. And that's going to be the geographics of the conference with the West Coast schools. You can have your West Coast pods out there. You've got a little foursome out there in the West. That's fine. But if you get Miami and Florida State, especially Miami down South Florida, not close to really anything, guys. So you're traveling. Like we got to this conversation before. It's absolutely relevant with Miami and Florida State. There's nobody else really within a couple state footprints. So you're traveling your women's volleyball, your women's basketball, everything's traveling so much to go to any freaking game. I'm telling you guys, I promise you this will be a significant driver in the next round of realignment. It's going to happen sooner than you think based on the geographics and the mental health of the athletes, not non-football athletes. It's going to happen on the West side and it's going to happen in Florida. So just look for schools in that geographic footprint between the historical Midwest, Big Ten, Florida, and also on the West Coast. I'm talking about bridge schools in the Mountain West. I seriously think that's what's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen probably within the next 7 years with the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten expands beyond 20 and gets to 24 too, for that reason.
Mr. Monkey says Notre Dame's biggest rival is reality. Like that. The Big Lubbock, do Amish drink whiskey? Well,
they don't claim to, but
I'm just on Rumspringer for the last 25 years. Why would the SEC let the Big Ten into the state of Florida? I don't know. Why are they? Because it's going to happen.
Yeah, I've been saying too, like in the past, I thought that there's no way Florida State went anywhere but the SEC because I didn't think the SEC would be dumb enough to let the Big Ten plant their flag in Tallahassee. Then the CFP happened. And so now it'd be pretty hard to see Florida State decide to join the SEC after all that happened. I think whatever boosters were pushing the SEC probably are like, F the SEC now. We don't care. Because, I mean, people with money, they get emotional too. They'll be like, oh, screw it. I got FU money, and so FU. So I think that's where it is now. And there's just not much choice. If Florida State pushes their way out the door, they can choose. There's no one that's going to tell them where to go.
I think the simple answer to this, in my mind, is that the SEC would lose money. All the members will lose money if they added Florida State and Miami. When you slice that out, the pie would be smaller. What I'm saying is Florida State and Miami to the SEC are not accretive. They don't add value to the conference because you've got Florida already in market there. And so adding that combo for the SEC is a losing proposition. It's a defensive play. And I don't think any of the members like Bama are going to want to take a pay cut for it.
Yeah, I think you're going to see the Big Ten take over Florida. They're going to grab Florida State, Miami. And it's all part of a plan to lock down certain locations of the country in order to get Notre Dame to join the Big Ten eventually. What game would be on Peacock for the Black Friday game? It's a good question. Because I think he's saying that if anything, I bet you're probably going to end up with Penn State, Michigan State on that. That's going to be your Peacock game. It's going to be the Land Grant Trophy. So enjoy that. Here's a Michigan fan who knows what's up. Anything goes during the Amish Run Springa. People who don't understand what that means, look it up. Make sure you're not driving on the roads. In order to keep the big out of Florida, the SEC has to take both Miami and Florida State. That's right. There's not really a way the Big Ten can stay out of Florida. I mean, you're not going to take them both.
Miami is South Florida. I don't know if that gets you like to me, that's not a threat to the rest of the South like Tallahassee is. I mean, Tallahassee, you can spit into Georgia and Alabama. It's straight down the 10 from New Orleans. I mean, you're Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, LSU. I mean, you can get there from anywhere. You can have a recruit from any of those areas come watch your game when you go down to play Florida State. Miami, that's a whole nother trip. That's like a whole nother state. So I don't think Miami is the same as Florida State. But you're right. You can't keep them out of Florida. But Florida State, that is going in deep, man. That's right in the heart of the South.
Steve-O, Fox doubleheader, Ohio State, Michigan, then Arizona State, Arizona.
There you go.
Yeah, you could maybe stick another one in there and have Arizona State, Arizona even be their late one.
Yeah, that would work better as a late game, I think.
They could double up with 2 from the Big 12 if they really wanted to.
If FBS divides between haves and have-nots, can you see a G5 college football playoff? If so, would P4 college football playoff give the G5 the money they would pay the top G5 champion that would get playing New York 6 Bowl, facilitate separation? A good question. I don't think so. I think you're still going to see G5 participation.
There's a lot of interconnectivity between these universities within the same states. You're going to have states getting involved. They don't want to see these schools damaged. Like I know everyone says, oh, they're going to divide, they're going to pull away. I mean, guys, it's a lot more complicated than that. I don't think so. I think they're going to figure out something that involves them all. Like that's why I tried to come up with my theory, my projection with the Tournament of Champions with the 4 A4 champions in it, and then 2 out of the G5 champions making it from if there's 4 conferences or whatever. just so that they're involved. Then their own conference playoffs will get them money. They'll actually become better. But in terms of dividing them off into their own thing, let's be real. Viewership for that's not going to be good. Networks might not even buy it. Like, and if they do, it's on the, it's on the cut. It's very low. So I don't think that that's really all that feasible.
Why let the big in Florida? Because they'd rather have Bama in the playoffs for one more year. Well,
that's what it came down to. That's what it came down to.
There's still a lot of people pissed off about that, believe it or not. Believe it or not, that snub pissed people off. Who'd have thunk it?
Bama had the number one all-around TV ratings for last season, and they saw it. They say, "Oh, that wouldn't play a part in it." Shut up. We're not dumb. But that's a business decision, and that's what the CFP is. It's an LLC. It's there to make money. And look, ACC schools will get paid more because Alabama was there other than FSU. So we saw that. The North Carolina State guy was there, voted for it. I would say most of the ACC was like, screw FSU. We want more money. And that's what happened. And hopefully that changes and we have more of an on-field based system here in the future. But that is what it is, and we all got a very clean look at what it is.
Right. I think Miami to the Big Ten is about more than its individual value. It 100% is.
100%.
Some bait.
Miami provides equity, and then we're talking market brand equity in the city of Miami. If you look at just markets around the world, Miami is a top 5 market as far as travel destination and a brand for just the location itself. Forget the hurricanes, just the city of Miami. So that's coming into play too. Plus, Ohio State can always go travel down to Miami and take a nice little vacation too when the Buckeyes play. So that's a big value add as well.
That's going to be the huge value add. They're adding Florida State and Miami. You're basically locking recruiting down. You've got South Florida, you've got North Florida into Georgia and Alabama. You're keeping Notre Dame out. There is no Florida team that Notre Dame will be able to play unless they join the Big Ten. They've done the same thing in Southern California by adding UCLA and USC. They're going to play teams in the Bay Area. Well, most of the recruits don't come from the Bay Area. They come from SoCal. Now, Notre Dame can't play there every year. If USC blocks them, some of this is just locking down the state of Florida. Yeah, you've got Florida with SEC there, but now you've got 2 schools. You got Northern Florida, Southern Florida represented. And you've got the overlap in Central Florida. You get into parts of Georgia, Alabama. There's reasons that it works.
And the Big 12 has Central Florida, guys. I know that never gets brought up, but UCF is a Big 12 program right here. So the Big 12 actually is in the state of Florida as well for recruiting purposes. So we'll have all the A3 in the state of Florida at the end of the day.
But not the ACC. The Amish grow their beard after they get married. You are still a newlywed. No, it's just I grow my beard really slow. I've been married a few years now. It grows real slow. SEC deal is pro rata. They wouldn't take a pay cut. Just FYI. Yeah.
One thing to consider here. Yeah, one thing to consider here, Rock and Rant, is what's your time horizon? So that might be true here. So hey, if you had FSU in Miami during the life of this current contract, but what happens after the contract runs out? Then all of a sudden FSU and Miami are still in, and you have to negotiate the next media deal based on three teams in the state of Florida. So that's a short-term view, but these conferences are looking for long-term and moderate-term time horizons. So this is a long game we're playing here.
Yeah, it's definitely long-term, but it's long-term, but it's short-term chaos. So enjoy that. Rock and Rant, FYI, Miami admin wants Big Ten. FSU to Miami is also like an 8-hour drive. You can get to many other states just as fast. I don't disagree with you. Great airport there in Miami, though. If you've ever been to the airport there, it's awesome. As always, thoughtful and thorough consideration of all the issues. Well, thank you, Granddad. And we have a little fun with it, too.
We try.
Sergeant Pickles. Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, bow down and bottoms up.
Got you with the super chat. It's about time for a new bottle.
This is the second
Yeah,
bottle.
getting a little low over there right now.
Yeah.
These shows are making you go through those bottles quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing and a bad thing. Miami is one of the 10 that got voted. That's true. And Kevin Warren was the Big Ten commissioner. They had vetted Miami already. So, Steve-O, Florida State is within 7 hours of LSU, Mississippi State, Auburn, Bama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. FSU fans that go to away games better be careful what they wish for. Well, that's true. You're going to have more travel, but you're also going to have more money.
And that's been stated by FSU fans. Even TJ, who was on our show not that long ago, he was speaking about this and how FSU fans would like to have those away games if at all possible, but they also understand the situation. And what happened with the CFP is kind of driven them to a point where this used to be the driving force for them. They wanted those away games. And now there is such a kind of an anger that it doesn't seem to be driving their thought process as much. So Steve was right. And yet right now it does not seem to be ruling the day for FSU because of what happened, which is pretty wild when you think about how that one choice has changed the realignment atmosphere and what could happen long term.
If the Big Ten gets into the state of Florida, there will be a shift in power between the conferences. I think that's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
You've had Feinbaum even come out and say that it's evened up.
Yep, Feinbaum did say that, and Florida State just goes more in that direction. That doesn't mean the SEC, is no longer as good as the Big Ten, but there's going to be seasons that come when you say the Big Ten was a lot better than the SEC this year. I mean, it's coming.
All right, guys, we got about 15 minutes more here, and then we're going to wrap it up. So if anybody wants to get comments in here, questions, we're going to try and do them as quickly as we can here. If you want guaranteed to be read, make it a super chat, and we'll get to it. Let's take a look at some more questions here. UCF has the largest enrollment in Florida and the second largest in the U.S. I didn't know that.
Do you know who has the largest?
Harvard.
No.
Texas A&M.
I don't think so.
The largest.
I think that one might be 3.
Okay.
I thought it was UCF with the largest.
I thought it was too, but if they're second, then I think I know who the largest is.
Is Texas the largest?
And I think Tony just said it. Yep, they're starting to get it in chat right now.
Oh, ASU, yeah.
ASU has grown by leaps and bounds, and they might have passed up UCF. That's why when people are like, "Oh, they need to get rid of the president," I just laugh like that's never going to happen. Like, you don't understand what he has done for that university as a university. People don't even realize the AD that got fired, he actually just got moved. He still works for ASU. That's how powerful that president is on that campus and what he's done. So, yep, ASU is, I'd say, a sleeping giant, but they're kind of just a giant now.
Check it out. Insurance is too expensive in Florida. Imagine the Florida legislature and executive branch more concerned about Florida State than dealing with the high insurance prices in Florida. Well, you got to remember, though, what grabs you headlines. It's not combating insurance prices. It's rooting and helping your constituents' favorite football team.
Also, I would kind of hope that they would be able to do more than one thing.
Yeah, you would hope, but they're politicians, so they can't.
Right. So oftentimes they can't do anything, but we see this. We're like, oh, should be doing this instead? I think they could be doing both. And you're not wrong with your point there. It just
Yeah.
I think they
Kinky
can do
Friedman always used to say, politicians comes from the Greek for poly and ticks from blood-sucking parasites. So many blood-sucking parasites, you know what politics is. People forget UCF, but they're a school on a big arrow up trend line, and they are in the Big 12.
The UCF is a sleeping giant in the Big 12. And that's the one program I could see really be a dominant player in the conference in the 5 to 10 year time horizon. If you look at what's going on recruiting right now at UCF, they're slamming down the recruiting trail. They're starting to pull more Florida kids. Like, that thing is turning, guys. So watch out, UCF. Like, they're going to be a challenger this year. You know, with KJ Jefferson coming in there, they got a good squad this year to challenge for a Big 12 title. I think that in the future, though, they're way up. Buy that stock now, because that's going to be a program that's going to be pulling recruits from the likes of Florida, FSU, and Miami.
Yeah, Hidden Hawaiian, great username. I live in Florida. Lately, I'm seeing more UCF fans than Miami. So if you live in Florida, how are you hidden in Hawaii? Come on. Oh, are you hiding? Are you a Hawaiian that's hiding in Florida?
Hiding in Florida, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
You guys explain to me this. Like, how in the world does Miami have this giant brand? Like, you know, Fox wants Miami, networks love Miami, but then you look at their viewership, it's not great. They can't sell out their stadium, and there seemingly is no Miami fans even in the state of Florida. I don't understand what the trick is going on. Is there something? Am I getting Houdini'd here? Like, what's going on with Miami?
For the Big Ten, it's their medical research, it's their hospital system, it's Miami becoming a tech hub. So the future is to move in some tech research there. It's a lot of things that aren't football, you know. So in order to make it to look at, they go, oh, it is, you know, this brand that always has potential. You match it up with Florida State, you get that Southern Florida, which is actually more in line with the Big Ten in the North than, you know, the rest of Florida. It has its reasons, but it also has its flaws. So whatever it is, you know, if that's true, the presidents like it, it's some of those other things. It's the research, it's the hospital, it's the tech hub, it's all those other things besides just on the field.
Yeah, it's Miami is the really cute chick who can't get her shit together, but she keeps promising she's going to get her shit together. And so you stick with her. She never gets her shit together. What can Big 12 do to raise OOC home games viewership? Who do they schedule? Any value Big 12 playing service academies? UCF versus Navy in Mayport, Jacksonville. Army versus Baylor in Fort Hood. Texas Tech versus Air Force in San Antonio, etc. I'll leave this for you. You're the Big 12 guy.
I think it's going to get a little more difficult down the line. I think that you're going to see less schedules between the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12, and more conference games in the future. So I think that the focus needs to be on in-conference, adding value in conference by grabbing schools like a Pitt. It adds a rivalry game and interest and stuff. So I think that the focus should be less on the out of conference, because that's going to become less relevant in the future, and more on what the Big 12 can do to bring intriguing matchups in conference and sell those.
It switches between UCF and other schools, but UCF has largest on-campus enrollment, while ASU has a huge online enrollment.
Yep, it is pretty massive. But also ASU has a campus in Los Angeles. They're opening up other in-person campuses around. So it's not really just Arizona State anymore. It's kind of becoming even bigger than that. It's becoming a different thing. They're thinking a little bit on a different level, which I don't know if most people realize, but they are.
Jamie Thornton, good for you to join us today, Jamie. Holy smokes, first FSU and watch out. UNC looks ready to set the world on fire with their war against the ACC. Yeah, that's certainly the statement they released. Certainly seemed like that as long as North Carolina State is taken care of, and I hope they mean money. I hope they're not just going to put North Carolina State in the trunk somewhere and drive them upstate. But as long as North Carolina State is taken care of, it looks like that's going to be the case. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for joining us, Jamie. I see you made it with us there. But I think UNC is finally showing. And people thought that UNC and Florida State had this thing going on, and I always thought that was kind of silly and not the case. Actions speak louder than words. Both of them voted no for the expansion. They're just kind of going about this different way, good cop, bad cop. But UNC, with their trustee, they came out and set the record straight. Like, no, this is the actual reality right now, and kind of made me look at the Board of Governors situation differently. It's more of a threat to the SEC. We're going to look at all the financials of any move and decide if it's a good idea. To me, now that means we're going to compare a move to the SEC versus a move to the Big Ten. Yes, the SEC is going to have less cost in travel, but the Big Ten is going to have other benefits for basketball, for research, for just academic means. That's what I think they actually meant now, is it's a comparison of the SEC versus Big Ten. If you want North Carolina, SEC, you're going to have to take North Carolina State. Otherwise, we may just say okay to the Big Ten when they come back around.
I'll say one thing to Jamie. Welcome in the house and go Razorbacks.
Oh, yeah.
I do the
Miami,
but can't do it.
Yeah. That's why I put the ooh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Miami has been irrelevant for 20 plus years.
Mm.
They have been.
So they're like a sleeping giant, huh? They're just sleeping out there waiting to wake up.
So is Nebraska, but we let them in.
Yeah, Miami's Notre Dame bait. Never forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 100% Notre Dame bait. The broadcast TV ratings show you're wrong, Utah dude. I think he's talking about over-the-air TV ratings versus ESPN or ACC network.
Well, I think that's a really good point to bring up, and thank you for bringing it up, Rock and Rant. I've done some research on this, luckily, and Miami measures 17 of 19 Big Ten schools if you're throwing Miami into the mix. So, and that's considering all games that Miami's played over a 3-year period that have been measured. The ACC network is not measured. So as far as viewership and stuff, Miami kind of compares right there next to Rutgers. That's not a joke right there. That's very serious. And just, it is what it is. I mean, maybe Miami could have a multiplier if you have a bunch of good runs, and maybe you can boost that viewership. But over the last 3 years, the viewership's been pretty poor.
Right. Miami, don't underestimate the big presidents wanting to be in trendy hotspots. Beverly Hills, New York City, South Beach. Maybe,
yeah. I mean, certainly some of their donors and boosters and people connected to it want those ideas and want to go to those places.
Terry Kane, the fact Miami is small private school, it's nice to be swimming in a big pond. There you go. I think that's fair enough. Rock and Rant, when you're looking at TV ratings, you have to compare like to like, broadcast to broadcast, tier 1 cable, not to regional. We can break it down further.
Yeah, I mean, like Nelson actually measures everything. That's not the ACC network. It's including everything that can be measured. Again, like you throw the ACC network out, and then like when you jumble all that together, you look at the average that your team produced per year. That's the same metric that goes into all the teams when you compare TV ratings and everything. And Miami, again, hasn't, like over the last 3 years, they haven't been a huge draw. It was, as far as looking at Big Ten schools, I mean, the Big Ten viewership's nuts. And the question that we should ask ourselves is, what does Miami's viewership look like in the Big Ten? And that might be significant. Like, is that going to be a double or triple or quadruple multiplier? Maybe so. But like in the ACC, it's killing you viewership-wise and stuff. And the same thing can be said about Georgia Tech and a bunch of other ACC schools outside of Florida State and Clemson. I mean, even North Carolina guys had less than 1 million football viewers per game. We talked about that earlier in this episode. So, like, it's not like Miami's alone, but the ACC just doesn't get a lot of views on their games.
Jose, Miami may have been a bargaining chip for Notre Dame down the road, perhaps. I 100% agree with you, Joe. That is exactly what it is.
Yeah, I have Miami and Notre Dame as part of that whole Ivy thing, so it could be if Notre Dame pulls away from that whole thing goes to crap too. So it's all kind of interconnected.
Rock and Rant continues. What do people draw when on networks? If you're doing bad and games get relegated to ESPN, the Coho, your average goes down by default. Well, that's true because there's fewer television sets that can get you. I don't think anybody's arguing that. We're just using the numbers that Nielsen provides. So, I mean, if
it's
we
just kind of
wanted
a
to,
general,
right? It's a general number. We're not making contracts here, thankfully.
And I think like the relevant thing that's not talked about as much is what the potential is, though. Say that Miami or any other school had really like a great season and stuff. Like, what's the potential viewership that they could warrant based on their brand? And I think Miami's pretty significant because Miami is a really, really solid brand out there. And if you put big time matchups and they're really good at football, I think that will draw. But like over the last 3 years, it just hasn't been the case.
Whoever you take from the ACC and you put them in the Big Ten, their numbers are going to go up because you're going from ESPN, ESPN1, and all that, and you're going on to CBS, NBC, Fox, because every Big Ten team has to be shown at least twice with their network partners. So, yeah, all those numbers are going to go up, whoever it is. It's just kind of an idea of where they are within the ACC.
Jose,
Georgia
Tech.
These guys are
you know, because normally I wouldn't count it because you're actually coming out and saying it. But since you're a member, Jose, just for you, this will be the last one for the night.
Privileges.
Be careful, Moen. Be careful. Yeah, there we go.
Just
it's
a little
Tuesday.
handle. It's Tuesday. UNC is in the best position. They know they have a spot in the SEC or big, and they can get what they want. A great place to be. You're absolutely right. They're in the bird dog seat, but you got to be careful not to push it too far. Coy has gifted a membership to the Big 12 Network.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Looks like Jamie Thornton got it.
Yeah, congratulations, Jamie.
Nice.
If you received that, make sure you thank Coy in the chat for getting that membership. I would recommend that after the show's over here in a few minutes, you run over to our homepage and watch the WildUte's Clemson to the Big Ten video. Highly
Check out the
informative, well worth the watch.
Absolutely. And like where some of the most value is if you flip to the last slide that's presented in that analysis and you just pause it and just kind of digest it. There's a lot of numbers, I get it, everything, but it's pretty valuable looking at like the stack rankings of each Big Ten school compared to like the subject test. In this case, it was Clemson. But if take a second to digest that information, and it will give you some insights.
All right, guys. Well, it's about 10 o'clock here, so I'm going to start wrapping it up. You guys have anything you want to say before we jump off here?
Great show tonight. Like awesome questions out there and everything. Like this community is smart. They're on top of it. Love that and everything because we can give you the best responses we can and we can be engaged with you guys and stuff. And these are the kind of shows that we love. So kudos to all you guys.
Keep an eye on things. We might see some movement here real soon. I keep saying this, but every single day it seems that we're getting a little bit extra from the NCAA and stuff going on there. We have to see some movement on this real quick. They need to figure out things for House versus NCAA. So hopefully we see something this week, but if not, we're surely getting plenty of other drama going on. So thanks for everyone for showing up with us today. We had a lot of fun dealing with you guys. 2 Moen After Darks in 1 week is pretty damn awesome. So thanks, guys, for coming in here. We're still at 130. It's been constant. We're at 2 hours, so thanks again,
guys. Have crushed it. You guys have crushed it tonight. Thank you so much for coming in here and dropping such great questions and comments. Moen After Dark is your show. I know it says Moen After Dark, but, you know, this is really your show to say your things, and we appreciate everybody who gifted memberships, dropped a super chat. That really helps us here, helps keep the light on. If you haven't done so before you leave, hit that like button. show us a little love here. Hit the like button, because that helps us so much in the algorithm, and it costs nothing at all, and it releases endorphins that make you feel happy. And with that, I will say peace out.